How many of us, we were talking about that this morning on the way down. In order to get here this morning without a 95, we'd have to leave about 4 in the morning. So that's the type of thing that I'm trying to bring forward. And with that, I'll close and open it up for questions. And hopefully I can answer a few. If I can't, I'll blame Adrienne. She's in the back.
Governor, we can, if we come across anything that we don't know the answer to, we can just ask Adrienne to tell us.
Absolutely.
Exactly. That'll be fine. Well, I want to thank our audience for submitting questions, and I've incorporated a lot of them into my notes here. We're going to just try and take the next 20 minutes or so and have a conversation based on some of what you submitted. I'm going to start with this. Sounds like you're running for governor again.
You know, the likelihood is yes. And the reason why is this. When I ran for governor the first time, it came out of the blue because I had told my wife we were going to retire. I was going to retire in January 2011. And then she gave me this list. And I thought it was easier to run for governor. Well, she just told me recently that she's working on that list again. So the likelihood is I will probably run again.
Well, that is good news. I'm sure the reporters in the audience are going to be happy to hear that. You know, you brought Ann with you when you came to visit with us. When you ran for governor, we interviewed all the candidates, and I remember asking you at the time about local control. So you spoke about it just now, and you know, I think it's something that a lot of people in the business community agree with you when you say, you know, there's all this redundant administration and too much cost. But we just had a debate with your predecessor about school administrative consolidation that felt like it blew up. And I know a lot of rural districts are breaking up now because they don't like being forced together. So walk us through, you know, how do you get from this idea that absolutely we can be more efficient to actually making it happen? Help us with that thought.
Well, I think the example is the Lewiston and Waterville example. I don't have a problem with local control, and I said, I think we can do both. I think we can do services at a higher level and still have local control. I never said that you had to take away the local school boards. I think those are very important. But let me give you an example of where I think education, for instance, is totally inefficient. The state of Maine pays for 100% of schools, new construction, pays 100% of teacher retirement, 100% of teacher medical coverage and retirement, and the state of Maine has absolutely nothing to say or do with the hiring of a teacher, setting salaries, absolutely nothing. So why should the state pay when the state has no say? And the Constitution says the responsibility of the state is to make sure that the local communities have education. So all I'm suggesting is we can work out a system where those who want to work together can work together. We can incentivize them to work together. I think the reason it failed in the first time is it was rammed down their throats instead of putting carrots out there. Give you an example of what I think we can do. We have a couple of school districts where it's costing the state $38,000 per year per student to educate them. You can take the best teacher in the state of Maine in English, the best science teacher, the best math teacher. They go do a video. They have a big screen. They give the lesson. Kids have their laptops, hit a button. That lesson goes right into the body of their computer, and they own it. You can have a teacher's ed in the classroom, lower the cost of education significantly, and you can become one of the world leaders in education. Canada, right now, folks, Canada is number 4 in the world. They use this process. Finland, arguably number 1 in the world, is they've used this system for years now. I was in China last October. In my part of the trip, it was a trade mission, but I spent a lot of time on education. So I sat with the commissioner of education for the province of Shanghai. So I said, what do you do? How do you solve the issue of social promotion? No understand what social promotion. Very nice gentleman. And I said, well, you know, kids that come to school and they just sit in a chair, stay there for a year, and you move them next year on to the next grade. Well, how do you handle that? We fire a teacher. Why do you fire a teacher? Because it's teacher's responsibility to tell the administration if somebody's falling behind. Now, that's their process. A little bit different world in China because they're only allowed 1 or 2 children, and so their parents are much more involved. But there's also, in China, because they only have 1 of 2 children, there's a big push on getting rid of little girls when they're born. They go to adoption agencies, and they were put into orphanages. People give them up. And those kids are educated without a parent's involvement, do equally as well as the boys.
Fascinating. I'm going to stay on this education topic. I know Governor Jindal and Governor Bush are both looked to as leaders of states where grading for schools has really worked. Mm-hmm. And a couple of things I wanted to ask you about. But one, I'm not clear about how we're going to help the schools that are struggling. I'm not sure if that's purely a local effort you're looking for, if the state's going to come in. And the other thing I got to ask you, you mentioned that over the course of time, the successful states see the grades move up. Mm-hmm. But if you grade on a bell curve, that can't happen. You're stuck with the distribution. So how's that going to work? Is that going to...
The bell curve is just to get it started. After that, they take on their own.
All right, we're not going to keep the bell curve. That's
we're not
just
going to keep
start.
the bell curve,
okay.
Number one. Number two is I've asked the legislature to give me a pot of money, both for local control in communities and local control in education, to assist those that are struggling. Mm-hmm. In the state of Florida, they have 3 years. And the state comes in and helps them out. In Indiana, they have 2 years, and the state comes in and takes them over. North Carolina and West Virginia were under similar programs, and they come in and they change the management. So there are many different models out there of how we can use to help schools. The issue in Maine, and they solved in Florida, is 3 years ago, I asked the teachers union in the state of Maine, you put up a pot of money, I put up a pot of money, the state does, we put a pot of money, you can manage it. And the purpose of the money is to allow teachers to continue their education, to get advanced degrees, no cost of their own. They put in the time, we pay for it. Increase the quality of the classroom. I'm still waiting for an answer. The most recent answer was 2 weeks ago, and they said, oh, we misunderstood what you meant. We'll study it. What's that tell you? Now, let me tell you the difference why Canada's number 4 in the world and Finland's number 1. In the United States, to be a teacher, you get a teaching certificate until you get to high school and university level. In Finland and Canada, it starts in 4th grade. You cannot teach 4th grade English without having an English degree in Canada, or French, or math, or science. You have to have a degree. It's called course content. We don't have that here. I have a master's degree in finance and economics. I have an MBA, and I concentrated finance and economics. I cannot go to a high school in the state of Maine and teach a basic bookkeeping course or how to balance your checkbook, because I don't have a certificate. That's what we base our education on. We have no path in the United States, in Maine, we have no path for a second-degree person. For instance, an astronaut could not come to Maine and teach in K through 12 about engineering, aeronautical engineering. It's just amazing. We just need to get to best practices. We need to look at ourselves and see what's working in the rest of the world and the rest of the country and where we're failing. So it can be done very easily. 3 things: involve the parents, hold the schools accountable, and give them choices.
That's good. Thank you. I'm going to shift the topic on you. How many people in the room, show of hands, how many people in the room think we should pay the hospital debt? Well, looks like you're on the right side of that issue, Governor. Maybe somebody didn't raise their hand, but I didn't see it.
There's only 2 that I've run into that don't agree. Justin Alfon, Mark Eves.
Duly noted.
You want their phone numbers?
we can put you in touch. Okay, so here's my question. I'm going to assume, maybe optimistically, that you're going to get a deal on that. You're going to make that happen.
I don't believe so.
I think you will. Going forward, hospital healthcare costs, not hospital cost, healthcare cost, remains a serious concern because we could accumulate a new debt. And this isn't like schools and municipal administration. It's much more complicated. Talk to us a little bit about what the state can do to assist our healthcare institutions to help control costs and our insurance companies.
Okay, because you guys are on Bill Caring, would you hold him down so he doesn't attack the stage? I had a big meeting yesterday, a 2-hour meeting on healthcare costs. And this is the problem in healthcare costs in the state of Maine. And Bill's going to totally disagree with me on this, and we've already had the discussion. But I think we have to return healthcare to the private sector, and we have to return it to the free market. And what I mean by that is we have CON in the state, and it's not helping the situation. Yesterday, I was looking at a knee replacement. You can have a knee replacement, hip replacement. You can have a hip replacement, double hip replacement in Boston. I forget the hospital now, but it's $17,000. Here in Maine, you can have a hip replacement, 1 hip replacement for $30,000, and another hospital that's an hour away will be $54,000. MRI, you can have an MRI in one hospital for $458, another one's going to be $2,800. What we lack is 2 things. The CON covers the hospitals, 1. 2 is there's no accountability. There's no transparency. Until we can get our hospitals to put out a price list like we do every place else, and we can shop a little bit, we're losers. We can't win the battle. State of New Hampshire has 1.3 million people, 26 hospitals. Maine has 1.3 million people with 39 hospitals. I will admit, Maine has got, it's a much larger state, sparsely populated. But I will tell you, I can buy a dozen helicopters quicker than I can build some of these hospitals. And many of our hospitals are struggling, so we have to, that's one area. The other area, which the government can have an influence on, and I think Bill and I do agree on this one, is we need to address the issue of frequent flyers, which is people that constantly use the ER. I'll give you an example. I was at Franklin Memorial recently. I was talking to the ER doctors. There were 3 people in Farmington, 3 individuals, that in the course of 365 days went to the ER collectively over 1,000 times. The issue has nothing to do with health. It has to do with physical health. It has to do with mental health. And so we ran away from mental health maybe 20 years ago. In fact, we're under a consent decree, and we are trying to get back out of that and to bring mental health into the whole medical practice, into the physician's practices, so you have both general practitioners and mental health physicians available. So I think the quick answer is it's complex. Everybody's got a part to play in. The insurance companies have no incentive, really, until we change the way they get compensated. If you get a percentage of the fee, of the premium, there's no incentive to make it better. You're only going to cut your revenues. So we got to change the way we address it. So I think everybody's got a part to play. I looked at some stuff yesterday. It was amazing. We looked at MRIs. We looked at lipids. You go in to get just a blood test. This is it goes as low as $18 all the way to $300. And Portland was a good deal, by the way.
Glad to hear that.
They were in the middle of the road. But some hospitals are charging $300. Those are the issues. A colonoscopy. I bet there's a lot of Democrats that like to give me one, too.
There you go. There's your headline right there.
But they were running the same thing. You can get them for $700 all the way to $4,000. And so we have to take a look at transparency within the hospitals. We have to get the hospital folks together. We have to get the practitioners. We have to get the insurance companies. And most of all, I believe the state of Maine needs its own medical school, MD medical school, so it can take Maine people, grow Maine people into Maine doctors for the rural areas.
That's right. We need more doctors. Have you read this Gang of 11 tax proposal?
Yeah.
You want to talk about it, or you want to hold your fire on that one?
No, I don't mind talking about it. I think it's a bad deal.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been a good deal. They just went too far. I think when you have a per capita income of $38,000, you cannot go out there and put sales tax on everybody's food. There's a lot of things that could have been done. I do believe conceptually of where they're going. I think the income tax is a very regressive tax. It needs to be eliminated. But before you go and you put a sales tax on everything, you ought to concentrate on improving your economy. And you can't improve your economy as long as you have, one of the things they're doing is the $50,000 homestead exemption. That is great for homeowners, terrible for business. Terrible for business. So they need to address commerce. And I told them right on when I met with them, you got to make sure that whatever you do is an incentive to attract investment. If you don't have as an incentive, you're going nowheres, because you're going after $38,000 and you're going to get them to pay a higher percentage, and that doesn't work.
I think you've talked a lot about what the other components of business attraction are for tax, so I don't know that we need to cover a lot of that. I know on this stage, Josh Tardy and Hannah Pingree have both said that in public they had an adversarial relationship at times. They were both in the legislature fighting each other, Democrats and Republicans, but behind the scenes they actually had a pretty cordial relationship and were able to work together when they needed to. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are we right now in that personal relationship? I know there's a lot of politics, people see the politics, but it's important when a budget deal needs to be made that you're able to sit down and talk to people. How are we doing? Is it not good, or is it okay?
I would say that from when we were in power 2 years ago, I would say the relationship between the governor, the Republican Party, and the Republican leadership was less than favorable.
Yeah.
This time around, I would say that the minority Republican leadership and the governor get along extremely well. I get along very well with the party now. I think that's all great.
Good.
I think on certain issues, I think the leadership, well, I got to be fair. The leadership between the governor and, let's say, the president of the Senate is non-existent. There's just no relationship there. As far as Mark Eves, the speaker, I'm open to talk to him all the time, but there's just never been an occasion where we can agree on anything.
Right.
So the door's open, but there's just not a willingness.
That makes me worry a little bit about the prospects for a budget deal. How do you rate that?
I will tell you right now, Calvin Coolidge said one thing that just stuck with me, is it's always more important to beat bad public policy than to pass good public policy. And right now with the budget, I put in a balanced budget. And where we are is this. I put it on the table, it was balanced. I expected two major discussions. One was home rule, the whole debate about home rule, do we want to stay there? If we want to stay there, then you got to raise taxes, no question. And then the debate is, do you raise it on property or do you raise it at the state level? We've never had that debate because when it went to the committee, they took home rule and they said, revenue sharing's back in, so they put it back in. They took teacher retirement, they put it back in. So as we sit right now, there is no budget. There's an $850 million hole, and I don't know where they're going. They haven't spoken to me about the budget. They've never entertained coming to my office about a budget. The only meeting that I had of substance with the leadership in the state government is this. Governor, we'll pay the hospitals if you expand Medicaid. If you don't, we don't. And frankly, folks, expanding Medicaid today is bad public policy. It's bad public policy on a number of venues. But most importantly, expanding Medicaid right now is only a 3-year fix. That means my kids and my grandkids that are not born yet are going to be saddled with a major problem, and I can't let that happen.
I'm going to count on the fact that nobody wins in a shutdown to hopefully bring the sides together closer as the next few weeks go on. I want to ask you one last question, and we'll wrap up. Whether you serve for 2 more years or 6 more years, I want you to just tell us what your vision of the end of your service is and what are the major accomplishments you want to leave behind.
What I want to leave behind is very simply this. I want to have an MD medical school in the state of Maine. That's 1. 2, I want an east-west highway. And 3, I want the busiest port on the eastern United States. And we have the deepest water. All we have to do is look ahead and make it happen. And I think that it's right on the border, so Canada and the U.S. could really benefit on this port. So I think those are the things that are out there. But I can't get to them because people are talking about yesterday. I got a bill yesterday that the Legislative Council wants to hold $300 back for the Franco-American Heritage Fund because they spent money. I mean, come on. That's what we deal with.
Right.
I've signed probably 200 bills since the legislature's been in session since January. I'd say about 200 bills that come across my desk. And I will tell you this, the most important one of those bills, the most important bill I've signed this year, and the reason I signed it is they got me 3 Democrats to vote to pay the hospitals. It was St. Patty's Day when I opened the bars 3 hours early.
There you go. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Paul LePage, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just a couple announcements here as we wrap up. Thank you, Governor, very much. Thanks for being here with us. To show our appreciation for your visit, we will also make a contribution to Build-A-Biz, our community corner partner today. Our next Action Issues is June 5th. Right back here, we'll have our own Paul Bradbury, the director of the Portland International Jetport, with us. I know Paul's here this morning, but we'll look forward to hearing from him in June. Secondly, I want to just make note, in the back of the room today is, every time we're at Eggs and Issues, is Laura Duplessis, who has been the communications manager at the Portland Regional Chamber for a few years now, and today is her last day. I want to publicly thank her for all she has done to help us put this on, working at the Chamber. She's great. Laura, give a wave. Thank you, Laura. I want to mention a group that Laura was very involved in when she came and continues to be involved and says she will in the future. I want to mention Propel to you. Propel's networking events bring young professionals together to engage in professional development and make connections in the business community. All Chamber members can join Propel for free, and non-members for just $35 in yearly dues. Please, if you have young employees who would like to be involved with Propel, connect them with the Chamber. Go to propelportland.org and get them involved, because it's a great organization and one that I think will pay dividends. That's it for today. Thank you all for being here. Have a great day.